And welcome to another episode of the Gaming Hall of Rivalries. I am your host, Jeremy, along with me, Mr. Curtis. How are you doing, Curtis?
Doing well.
And today on our episode, we are going to be talking about the most top co-op agents in the government, basically in the government, where you don't know them, but they do a lot to help protect the government and the world. And the two characters we're talking about here will be Sam Fisher from the Tom Clancy Splinter Cell series, and Snake, or Solid Snake for just to be more direct, from the Metal Gear Solid saga. And just a heads up on these characters, we did some research on it, but we are not going to go super deep about these characters. That's something that you can go on YouTube, or and someone can give you the whole outline, because we could be here for 2 hours talking about every little detail about that. But we just really want to concentrate about just kind of their familiarities for each other, and some of the stuff that they're known for and all that. So I'm gonna go first this time, because I think Sam Fisher's load is a little bit less than Snake in comparison. So if people don't know, Splinter Cell started out in 2002, and it started out on the original Xbox, and that led up to 7 games. And the interesting thing about Sam Fisher is that compared to Snake, that he has gone through a lot of stuff. You're talking about a guy that was he's basically in co-op for Black Ops, known as the now I might be saying this wrong, but it's called the third echelon. That's the word. Okay, yeah, third echelon. And after about 3 big missions, and we're talking about Chaos Theory and Pandora Tomorrow, not in that direct order, he took a big turn on his life because of an accident that happened to his daughter. Mm-hmm. And her daughter died in a drunk hit and run accident, basically. And that happened right in the middle where he was going to go into a next mission, where he had to play kind of like an undercover guy trying to infiltrate this terrorism organization. And I remember they talked about in that game where, depending on the decision he makes, can affect him staying undercover or pissing off the government that he's working under. And then later in the series, he basically gets revenge. He goes after the people that were involved in the accident of his daughter. And then now at the present of Splinter Cell Blacklist, he's basically back to where he is, but now he works for a new organization called the Fourth Echelon. So the interesting thing about this game, I noticed, is it's super stealthy, where mistakes can get you killed immediately, compared to Metal Gear, where it's more of you get a couple of warnings before dying. And I think for Sam Fisher, it's more of every move you make makes a huge difference, because there's not a lot of place to hide. You have to really work, going to the shadows, or going up somewhere where you can't be known. But what I like about it is, one, I think everybody knows the familiarity of his goggles, the tri night vision goggles. Yeah. That's what he's known for, and the ability to do night vision and all that. But another thing that I noticed about it is, this game, the point of the game is not so much to use your weapon. It's more of using your martial arts and your other skills to get the job done. We're talking about hacking, using drones, all this stuff. A gun is only used as a last resort. That's why in the game they don't give you a lot of ammo. They only use it in case if a guy caught you and you're in there one-on-one with him, you kill him and then you move on, and you can move the bodies and stuff. And that's another thing they have in common with that. But we'll get into more what they both have really, really in common, because there's a lot of stuff that both games have to do in common. I think that, of course, this game was influenced by Metal Gear, because the fact this game came out way later, and I think that Snake really opened that door of those stealthing games. Yeah, for basically the handbook of how you're supposed to do stealthing and stuff that you're supposed to think out the box. We're talking about being super quiet, just stealthiness in general. So I think what it is about Sam Fisher, I think, stands out from Snake, in my opinion, is though Sam Fisher has to be more stealthier. And if we have to compare that, I think he is stealthier than Snake. Mm-hmm. I just think maybe Snake is more of a badass, I guess, and more fighting and stuff. But Sam Fisher is that. Now, have you ever played any of the Splinter Cell series? I've only played the first one.
I have not.
Okay, so it's very slow because you have missions inside of most of the time in a close corridors area, like you're chasing like a building or a home or something like that, and you have to work your way around compared to Snake, where your whole story is in a facility.
Yes.
That's most of the time you see that in other games. We'll get into that later. Sam Fisher always gets located into these small corridors. He finishes and he moves, and they send him to another place. Now, this is it's a very, very simple plot. I mean, he's just infiltrated, so there's not like too much a talk about Sam Fisher, I'm sorry to say. And like I said, we don't want to go super deep about this, because honestly, I kind of, on this show, I want to do more of talk about a little bit about each one, and then really break down like their, the similarities of them, because they have a lot of similarities. So that's a little bit about Sam Fisher. Do you have any inputs about your experience with Sam Fisher at all, or
some gameplay that I have seen of some of the Splinter Cells? He's very methodical, but he on a whim will go with natural instinct over the best laid plan. Mm-hmm. And that's reflective not only in the storytelling, but the gameplay too. Something goes wrong, you have to think really quick on the spot, or you're gonna get.
I will say this though.
Would you agree on that?
No, I agree with that, but I also know that when he wants answers, he wants answers.
Yeah,
and he's very dominant answers. Like if you don't answer, he will literally kill you, basically, because I guess the government's giving him like you do what you got to do to get the job done. And so I think he's a little rough around the edges, especially when he started breaking down when he lost his daughter.
Me of Brian from the Taken movies, the Liam Neeson character.
Yeah. And I think that what makes him I think that's what it is too. I think it makes him stand out. I think it stands out because he was betrayed, and he became a different person, what he has to do to survive, because he was against the government at one point, and now he's back with the government. That's basically it. I mean, he just gone through some shit. So let's go ahead and go into your person, and then we'll take a break.
Oh, man.
I know. We're going to be here for a little bit.
Cutting to the core of it, Snake is a clone of a super soldier, the big boss.
And see, this is where it's going to take a little bit.
What's really fascinating about Snake, and from what I've played of Metal Gear Solid and just seen videos and just his summary of his story, is nothing is straightforward at all in his stories, especially when being in a Kojima game. You're told one thing, you're told another thing, and completely changes the outlook. Oh yeah, by the way, Splinter Cell is part of the Tom Clancy series, so that kind of gives you an idea of what you're getting into. It is a very secret op kind of game where you infiltrate and give information. Go on, Curtis. Well, in the first game he was in, Metal Gear, which released 1987 on the NES, he's recruited by Big Boss into a group called Foxhound. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ideally, it's he's sent in to find out what this Metal Gear is, what is mentioned in the last transmission sent by Gray Fox. As his mission progresses, Snake finds out that he has been set up, and this is going on, like you're told one thing, and then you get blindsided by the plot and just reality. He gets set up, and it turns out the base, his leader is the Big Boss, the guy who sent him there in the first place. Mm-hmm. And most games, even from the first game all the way to Guns of the Patriots, is never straightforward. He is just a mercenary for hire. He does what he's told and then gets blindsided. But the mission's always been the same. The same. Take care of Metal Gear. And people don't know what Metal Gear. Metal Gear is a top like AI giant robot that can fire off nukes. Yeah, but the Metal Gear itself had different transformers. I mean, you had Metal Gear, you had Metal Gear Rex, you had the Metal Gear. Every name had a different code name, and it seems like it's been more powerful than the last Metal Gear. Yes, I guess you can say. So that's interesting about that. The one thing I do know about Snake has always been a character that he knows what's going on, but he doesn't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like he kind of just accepts it. Yeah, he just moves with it. And I guess it's more of like, you guys know what's going on. I don't need to really explain it, because that's why I have the comms. And that's another thing too about that game, where
all your information is through a comm. If you need anything answered, he goes to the comm.
Yes.
That's where that's where your character development is with your generals.
Conversations with Campbell and
then your other character development is the people that he runs into during his missions. We're talking about like Autogon. We're talking about Merle. We're even talking about like the cast. And that's the thing too. Metal Gear is a big world because of his cast and villains and all this. Splinter Cell doesn't really have a really big cast because it's a straight government and terrorism.
Yeah.
And just straight, it's more of the modern, where Snake is more far out there, right? So basically you can make up a huge story with that, with the whole conspiracy theory and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, with Snake, if you look at Metal Gear Solid, he has to infiltrate this base. It's a rescue mission, essentially. And the very group he was the leader of, Foxhound, well, they go rogue. And you were saying with Sam Fisher, you're just killing terrorists. You're killing nameless people. Snake's killing people or trying to neutralize people that he worked with, that he commanded. So that has his respect and vice versa. And I just found that very fascinating because that turned almost into a quasi boss rush game, but in a stealth setting. What really impressed me I played Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1 way back 1997, 98. It blew my mind because that was the first game where you are isolated, alone, in no man's land. No one's your friend. You have no allies on the ground. And you've got to get inside this building. And this was just the first, 20 minutes of the game?
Going underwater.
Yep. You're out in the snow outside the outskirts of the base. And you have limited ammo. You are not running and gunning in.
No.
And if you look at titles back then, I'll use GoldenEye as an example. That was almost a run and gun. There's some sequences. Some of your shooters back then were definitely running guns. You would die. Snake is a badass at hand-to-hand combat, but going up against a few machine guns and 3 guys are going to take you out. And you really had to think. You had to use the environment. You had to use the air conditioning shafts. You had to use the boxes. And my stupid ass just went in with my pistol the first time. It's like, it's just one guy. You shoot him, and then you've alerted 2 other guys, and they're coming after you.
I think, like, even in the first part of the game, because the game didn't really give you a tutorial.
No.
But to tell you the truth, I think the first area you come in
was
your tutorial before the elevator. That was right there. It was like, here's 2 guards. Your goal is to wait it out until this elevator comes, and right there you're supposed to learn that these guys can hear you. These guys these guys communicate each other, and that's what made it interesting.
We said at the beginning, it really laid down the groundwork for stealth. It introduced field of vision, hearing, your sound, routine routes for the guards would work in their patrol. And they would notice if a guy's missing too.
Right. And I know a lot of people are saying, people are probably listening and say, well, Splinter Cell does that too. And I say, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that Metal Gear came first. And of course, I think Splinter Cell is going to use elements. So I don't think that needs to be said that Sam Fisher doesn't do the same thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure he makes noises for the guards to come around the corner and he knocks them out, or hide the body, because that's the first game in Metal Gear where they notice their environment. They're like, there's a body. I'm calling backup. Let's figure this out. And it's the same thing with both games where you have to wait it out and then kind of start over again. But anyways,
what was developmentally, Metal Gear Solid was the first 3D open setting from a series that was mainly 8-bit 2D with an overhead view. I mean, you still had that 3D world of things, but the technological jump made it just feel so real,
What I really like about that game, though, is that each time you get further in, you're more challenged to think outside the box. Yes, your goal is to infiltrate and sneak around, but that's not it. When you get to the boss fights, that's really what makes the game stand out, is where you have to think outside the box, and that's really cool. Even at the very beginning, they tell you, like, hey man, if you're ever in trouble, look up the code. It's on the back of the game. And when you look at the back of the game, it's like, oh, that's the code. And it's like, wow. And even in the boss fights where, like, you know, you got a guy that can actually, like, try to read your mind, and you have to, like, unplug your controller into another one to outsmart him. Or when you're going against a sniper, that you have to be extra quiet and sneak around to get them.
Yes.
And so, and then also, too, they force you to use all the gadgets that you have to defeat a certain enemy. Like, you gotta have to use flashbang to blind this person so you can get behind them, shoot them. And it's not one of those games where you're supposed to run up, do a combo, and then the fight. Because no, you're supposed to do what you gotta do and get away from him.
What was really cool, and this is kind of hitting on what you're saying, was the story of Metal Gear is full of twists and turns. Nothing is obvious to do. Nothing is the run and gun. It's definitely outside the thinking of the box, and that really transferred into the gameplay, which I found was neat. That was because, yeah, if you think about it, back then, including the 16-bit era, you had platformers, shooters, run and guns. Mega Man is definitely guilty of the run and jump, just shoot everything in sight. And Metal Gear was definitely stealthy. It was definitely a kind of, whoa there, Chief, you just can't run in there like that.
I think, though, the one thing that a lot of people forget about Snake is that Snake is chosen to go two ways. You either go in killing people quietly, or
never be seen.
Yeah, or tranquilize them, like sleep them. So you get to choose how you want to do that. And you know, I don't know if you ever beat the game in both ways, but you know, beating that game without killing anybody, except for the bosses, is way more challenging because, you know, you don't get a lot of bullets, and they're put to sleep, and you got to hurry up because they eventually wake up.
Yes.
And so, have you ever beat the game just putting them to sleep only?
Oh,
That's
no.
very challenging.
No, I F that.
Right.
No.
Right. And to me, that's how they, you know, change the mode of normal and hard. Like, hard is going through that game without killing anybody. In normal mode, it's like, do what you got to do to get to the end. Either put them to sleep, or kill them, or choke them out. Actually, in that game, you never really broke anybody's neck. You mostly just put them
to sleep.
Yep. And so, I think also, too, what I like about Snake is that involving with him, even from Gun to the Patriot, is that he seems to always, it's weird because, like, he always seems to get something new part of him. It's weird, and as a clone, it's very interesting. Like, you know, in the fourth one, he ends up having, like, you know, a magnetic, like a technology eye patch.
It's not because he lost an eye; it's just because that helps him do his job.
Right, and then of course in Metal Gear Solid 2. I'm trying to think. I thought something else happened. I think he lost his arm. But the interesting thing about Metal Gear Solid 2 was a game where Snake was on the sideline in that one, right? He's the one giving information while you're playing a different character. And out of everybody here, Snake never got it the worse than everybody else. I mean, what's his name? What's the name of the kid in the second one? I forgot his name.
Was it Raiden?
Raiden. Oh yeah, Raiden got it the worst. That guy lost all body parts, got all new magnetics, everything. We've seen that in 4, where he's like fighting with his toe with the sword and whatnot. He just got it the worst.
And Raiden was also in a Metal Gear Revengeance.
Yes.
That had hack and slash. That wonderful hack and slash.
Was that after 4 or before 4?
I think it was before.
Okay. So, anything else you want to touch on, Snake?
Other than that, no. It definitely transformed the gaming landscape for stealth.
Okay.
That's my biggest takeaway from it. And just, it's, it holds up. It really does hold up. It led to a lot of innovation in that genre.
Now, we noticed that later on in the series of the Metal Gear, they go back.
Yeah.
And, of course, with the evolution of gaming and stuff, Big Boss is, the granddaddy of it all. And we're not going to go too much into this, but, you find out that Big Boss was super stealthy in his own way. But Big Boss, to me, didn't have a giant, huge conspiracy of this. I mean, he was the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
He's the one that kind of set up this whole thing.
Yeah.
He's the one creating the clones. He's the one that's basically Big Boss basically was in the moment of all this chaos, and Snake had to kind of clean it up. Doesn't that suck?
Oh yeah. Well, even the premise of Metal Gear Solid, the demands by the terrorist group is like, hey, we want this money, and we want a sample of Big Boss's DNA. As the government's like, absolutely not. No.
And I think also too, what I noticed is that at the end of it all, I'm trying to think, did Big Boss die? He didn't die in the first one. He didn't die in Metal Gear Solid.
I think it was the second game he actually died. It was a lookalike that was killed in the first game.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably right. And so, but let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about more of what they both have in common, and then we're going to talk about what we think the future of those series are going to go. We'll be right back. Hi, and thank you for listening to the podcast as part of the In-Game Boss program, a network of gaming and other variety podcasts, gaming podcast shows like the In-Game Boss, Gaming Halls of Rivalries, and of course, the Gamers Den podcast. Other variety podcasts, we have Bond Never Dies, Come Meet, and Be Mindful of Jeremy Evans. And if you have any other questions, please email us at ingameoffice@gmail.com. And thank you so much. And welcome back to the Gaming Hall of Rivalries. I'm your host, Jeremy, along with Curtis. And if you're now just listening to this, I wonder, why are you starting at halfway of the show? We are talking about Sam Fisher and from the Splinter Cell series, and we're talking about Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series. And we're going to talk more about what these characters have in common. Now, to be fair, the Splinter Cell saga started a little bit after the Metal Gear, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that Sam Fisher is going to have moves or some stuff that Snake has, but we're not going to look at it like that. We're just going to look what they have in common, just in general, no matter what. Because just because that, Splinter Cell started years later doesn't mean they can't be on par. And so we're just, Curtis, you and I are just going to go back and forth with talking about it. So we know that definitely in common that they both have more stealth. I say that Sam Fisher has to be more stealthier than Snake. But one thing I know they have in common is that they both they kind of don't know what they're doing. They're more like, let's do the mission and get done, but they never know what goes behind the scenes of what the mission they do. You agree?
I agree.
Because I think that Snake has it worse than Sam Fisher, because when Snake gets betrayed, he's in the middle of a chaos happening when that's happening. It's not more like after the mission, like, hey man, yeah, you did the mission. Yeah, now this is a bad thing that you did. Instead of like,
this is right in the middle, midway through the mission or game, that you get this horrible plot twist of everything's a lie. This is what's really happening, kid. You're an idiot. You're expendable.
And then for Sam Fisher, it's more after he completes the mission, they tell him, hey, we need you to do this one. But it's not until I think later on, halfway into the game itself, is where he realized that, okay, something's going on. So that's interesting. I want to talk more about their gear stuff. Now, they both have a lot of gears. The only big difference is that Sam Fisher uses more high-tech gear than Snake. Snake uses more of simpler stuff, I want to say. Like he's to me, Snake has more grenades than anybody else. I mean, he has a flashbang. He has the I think it's called the Schleifer or something like that. The one that can stop the cameras and all that kind of stuff.
The stun knife.
The stun knife. He uses. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. He does get some guns, but they're not until like way later.
He nanobots, if I remember, inside his body.
Yeah, that's right. And then Sam Fisher, I want to say that. I want to make sure I'm saying this right. that he has more I want to say he has more fighting skills than Snake, what the game portrays. Because Snake is more of do my move and keep going. Unlike Sam Fisher is more of like, I gotta take these guys out one at a time to make sure they're not coming back to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
Because Snake, to me, he does the move, but you keep going. By the time they wake up, they're wondering like, okay, what just happened? And Snake is long gone. And so, what about you? What are common things you see between the two characters?
Definitely their mindsets of the mission first. One of the funny things I found out about both of them is these guys cannot retire.
Okay, yeah.
That is just... I think Snake's retired 3 times, had his death faked in Metal Gear Solid by the commanding officer, even said like, oh yeah, you and this lady, you died in the car wreck going down. And you guy cannot get away from it. He keeps calling him back.
Don't you think it's kind of interesting that they, when it comes to stealth games, it always leads to like, huge terrorism between the two characters?
Yes.
Why do you think that? You think that's just a common thought of, they're created only for terrorism situations, nothing else?
I definitely feel that way. They are the only time they're ever needed is for world-ending situations. I mean,
and I think too it's interesting that the payoff for both games ends up being pretty good. Now, granted that Snake's payoff is more of epic. I mean, think about it. Like when Sam Fisher goes through a mission, it gets done, but it's still done pretty quietly. Snake goes in quietly, but it doesn't end up quietly.
No, it never ends up quiet. It turns into
it ends up being a huge, like, this building is going to blow up.
Yeah.
I think actually that's true. I think, like, at the end of Metal Gear, it ended up being a car chase scene between him and to get out.
They're trying to escape the base because the B-2 bombers are coming in to blow up the friggin' island.
And then Shadow Moses, that's what it's called. Yeah, Shadow Moses. And then in the second one, it ended up being, this giant tower of basically out in the middle of nowhere, water, like an ocean, and that crumbles down.
Yes.
And then you get that in Gun of the Patriots, where
what's funny is it almost turns into a James Bond climax of the base.
You know what? That's a really good way to put it. I think they both have a very James Bondish. Except like. It's tough because Sam Fisher doesn't have iconic villains. No. It's just Sam Fisher. Sam Fisher
versus the world.
Yeah, and Snake is more of the Bondish feel. I mean, I can walk away knowing that there is a lot of characters I remember from it. Like, you have Raven, you have Sniper Wolf, you have what's the one in Gun of the Patriot? I forgot. You got Psycho Mantis. You got
Sniper Wolf.
Yeah, you got the guy in 2 that Vamp. You got a guy that has DNA of a vampire-ish. That is so weird.
And all the henchmen he's fought, the cybernetic ninjas. I mean, good grief! It is definitely Snake is his rogues gallery is very reminiscent of Bond villains and henchmen.
And so I guess it comes down to what we think the future of these characters are going to be. So, to me, Sam Fisher, is back to the very beginning kind of ish with Blacklist. Blacklist is back to like kind of like how the first game is. He's with a new organization doing what he does again. So the question is, where is that saga going? Or do I think this is basically the end of Splinter Cell? Tell you the truth, by the way it looks of it, I think the story can be done with Sam Fisher. I think the story can be done to keep going. For a fan base, maybe people want more of it, but I honestly don't know what the future of Splinter Cell is, but I think it can end there and be done with it. But if you do it, I'm pretty sure it would go into another giant conspiracy theory of something. But I guess maybe based on the history of Sam Fisher, I think maybe we look at it as some people getting revenge on Sam Fisher. Hasn't been anything yet. It's more Sam Fisher getting revenge on somebody, and you get that Taken kind of idea where now the enemies are going to come to your doorstep and try to get you. So maybe we should see more of Sam Fisher being chased.
Yes.
And that'd be kind of interesting to see, where he has to use his moves to escape from this mob or something like that. So what do you think?
Definitely go a Punisher route, because, you know, Fisher's backstory is almost everything leading up to Frank Castle before his family's shot up.
Right,
know?
but I see that too, but I think that's where conviction comes from. He does his Punisher thing, going after the people that killed his daughter.
Yeah.
And now the question is, what would trigger him to go back into that Punisher? I mean, he basically lost all his family. Like, what does he have left?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. But Metal Gear, though. Now, Metal Gear Solid, where it's at, only has 3 games. Gun to the Patriot was the last one, and it looked like it ended all. So what happened? Kojima left
after the Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
And him and Konami and him, that is a marriage wrecked.
Right. They both got a divorce, and now Konami's making a new game based off of Metal Gear Solid 5, where it's a spin-off of another dimension. So it doesn't really count as its own game, and it doesn't really count to me. So what do I think of Metal Gear? I think it's time for a reboot. I think it's time to just start over again. Brand new story, nowhere connected to the other Snake. This is a new Snake and a brand new story. And I'm not talking about Snake is still a clone or anything. No, let's do a new Snake, a new story. How this Snake is he Solid Snake? No, I think this should be, or he could be Solid Snake, but he's not the Solid Snake. He's not a clone Solid Snake. There's no Liquid Snake. Let's go ahead and do a new story with Snake and see where that story goes. I still want the giant conspiracy theories and these iconic villains that they create about it. But let's go a little bit higher. Let's use the gameplay that we got from Phantom Menace into this game. If they had want to go open world, where to go world? You know what? That's what I would like to see. I would like to see Sam Fisher in an open world stealth game, just like Metal Gear, and see what they would do with that. And I would like to see it in a different kind of playgrounds. Like Phantom Pain had one giant playground. That's it. I would like to see Sam Fisher in multiple playgrounds infiltrating other missions.
Almost like a Hitman.
Yeah. So I would like to see him do that, since he mostly travels more than Sam. I mean, than Snake. I would like to see him do multiple, and I would put him in so many different circumstances. Like, I would like to see him infiltrate a underwater base or something like that, or a dock or something like that. I would like to see him infiltrate different places in the country. Like, I don't know the games very well. People can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like him to see him more
globetrotting.
Yeah. Let me see him in somewhere in the Arctic. Let me see him something more in the China and more in the Asia district. Let me see something more in Africa. Let's see him hop and everything, and give us awesome environments where he has to use his skills on. Like, for instance, like in Africa, maybe somehow he can help, he can use the jungle to his advantage to get where he needs to go.
It almost sounds like a pitch for a James Bond game, but with multiple, like the multiple missions that Bond has been sent on. That would be perfect for Fisher to infiltrate, like this underground base, this jungle base, the suburbs. I mean,
and granted, I know that I'll take this back for a second. Phantom Pain, he does jump places. I will say that because his base is this huge ship dock, and he goes to 3 different places. But I guess for Sam Fisher, I want more than what that happened. I think it makes more sense for Sam Fisher to do that. And like the Arctic, I want to do this because like in Snake, they didn't realize, and I think they weren't able to use like this, but it was cold. They never used the temperature to his advantage. Like, he needs to stay warm. Maybe the tactical suit was a thermos or something like that. But in Snake, in Splinter Cell, I would like him to infiltrate somewhere in the Arctic where he has to use the temperature against him, but also to be stealthy. Like, you got to stay warm, but you still got to get this mission done.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to Snake Eater, where you have to use food to survive.
Yeah.
not so much the temperature, and you never like get hot heat. You never like faint from heat rush or anything, but you have to eat to survive. And I think that's too deep. I think I really like that. I think for Sam Fisher, it's more of use the environment to your advantage, but let the environment be against you at the same time. Like, let Mother Nature be against you.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you think that sounds interesting to you?
I
What do
agree.
you think?
There's a thin line between realism and too much addition, but at the same time, it's needed. It's needed to push the elements, the storytelling, and the gameplay.
And I guess for Snake, I want to say for his game, I like the playground still. I would like him ever since Phantom Pain. The playground fits better for him.
Yeah.
But with more modernized-ish, and what I mean modernized, I'm not talking about like where we are. I'm talking about modernized like the Metal Gear Solid kind of era. Like we have more gadgets. Because you're looking at Phantom Pain where it's back more close to the World War, like the Cold War and all. Well, not so much the Cold War, but way back, way back where technology was still being developed. Now I want more of a more future, more of a 20th century where there's way more gadgets for him to use in this open world. Because like now you said you haven't really played Phantom Pain.
No, I have not.
But in Phantom Pain, you have a lot of gadgets to use in there, but you have allies. Like you have a wolf, you have a dog that can join you. Mm-hmm. You have a girl that's a sniper that can join you. You have there's different stuff that you have you have AIs that help you out in the game, and I like to see that get crossover into the reboot of that. Like, who are my allies that can help me in this game? Can I have a little guy named MK2 or 3 or whatever be my partner?
Infiltration and hacking, that would be amazing.
That'd be really cool. Or even if you want to use a pet, what kind of pet can we use for that? That'd be kind of really cool. I mean, I know it's far out, and I'm bizarre, and I think it'd be actually pretty cool, bizarre. But what about a monkey? I don't know. It's like something
a ferret. That would be
right. It's like something weird.
Yeah,
I don't know. A lot of people are talking. Maybe people might be against it. Like, no, that's a little too weird. But then again, I mean, you had a horse in the game, and you used it in an interesting way with that. And so, but what about you? Like, what do you want with the future of Snake? Do you want a reboot? Do you want to continue off where it is, even though it kind of ended? But do you want that?
I'm leaning strongly with a reboot, or because continuing where it is, the Snake we've been talking about the whole time is a 35-year-old old man due to his DNA and the virus that he still has. Mm-hmm. I mean, he looks 60.
Right.
Yeah, he's only 30.
And that's the interesting about that, because I forgot about when he was cloned. He still aged a little bit quicker than everybody else. Mm-hmm. That is interesting. That's what I think. I think that's something that they just need to do. But Konami, I don't know where their vision is for Metal Gear.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want to do with it. I mean, when's the last time you heard a Konami game, period, from them in general?
Besides pachinko machines.
And I think they still have that soccer game, that PSE Evolution series, but they're sitting on all these franchises, but we don't see anything. So we don't know what the fate of Metal Gear would be with that. But we see it with, I want to say, with Kojima with his new game, Death Stranding, where we're seeing not so much a Metal Gear, but we're seeing elements from Metal Gear of the more bizarreness in that game. And so, and as for Sam Fisher, by the way the sales sound like it's kind of declining, I don't know what the happening of Sam Fisher is going to be.
What the direction. Yeah.
Right. I wish I had, now to my listeners, I wish I was into that series, but that series was never like straight in my face on my radar. And I think a lot of people were like, either you're going to play Metal Gear or you're going to play Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of people that play both. Honestly, I was on the Metal Gear side. I like that because I like the story more. And Sam Fisher, I like the stealthiness, but the story was very simple. Maybe it didn't drive me as much as I did. And so, what about you? Did Splinter ever interest you at all, or you kind of was like, eh?
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction to it. definitely gravitated more towards Metal Gear Solid.
Okay. And it was it one? Now, granted, I'm pretty sure that Metal Gear was the first one that came right. I mean, it came out what, 95, 96?
The one on the PS one. It was not. I think it was 98, 99.
98, 99? Okay. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. Metal Gear Solid. It was 98.
98. Okay.
Yeah, so 98. Yeah, so, but that is basically that's basically the end of our episode. Funny enough, it's like they both have really crazy stories among each other, but it's funny because this is our shortest episode. And so, but for my listeners, definitely stay tuned. We have more for you. I believe who's our next two rivals?
I believe it was Chocobos and Moguls.
Or Toads and Moguls.
Toads and Moguls.
Yeah, Toads and Moguls. So join us when we talk about the most highlighted NPC characters in gaming. I mean, can you think of little NPC characters that are memorable in gaming? I don't think so. So Toad and Moogles are going to be our next episode. So definitely check that out. And to learn more information about our show, definitely check out the commercial after this message. And with that, we will catch y'all on our next Gaming Hall Rivalries. Hi, and thank you so much for taking time to listen to the show that is part of the In-Game Boss program. Remember, you can always visit us on Facebook and Twitter to get up-to-date news about what shows are premiering and whatnot. And also, you can always listen to our shows on iTunes, Podbean, and YouTube. And remember to follow and subscribe, leave a review and a 5-star rating to keep us going. And thank you so much.